Okay, hello everybody. This is Mike here again. So I have a guest speaker interview, and on a topic that I think is kind of cool and kind of topical in the news. And so, without just let's just jump into the interview, and I'll have my guest talk about herself, introduce herself. So take it away.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. It's a great honor for me to sit and speak with you today. My name is Babaiasl, and I have a PhD in mechanical engineering with a focus on robotics. I'm currently a lecturer and researcher in robotics, and I work on steerable needles and education robotics. And I also founded a company named Mechanism. My company's mission is to revolutionize the education and learning in robotics and provide a platform for learning for the current and future generations to learn the skills necessary for a rapidly changing world. My background is, it was 2013 that I started to work on rehabilitation robotics, and I designed the 3DOF rehabilitation robot. I also designed and implemented the robot, rehabilitation robot for Parkinson's disease, and what that robot does was eliminating the tremors of the hands of a Parkinson's disease sufferer. For my PhD, I worked on steerable needles, and these are the needles that can be steered to a target location, and it can be used in minimally invasive surgery.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
We might have to do a whole interview, talk about some of the cool projects and stuff you're working on.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the education. I can't tell you, education, STEAM, I like to call it STREAM now. Science, technology, robots, engineering, art, and math. But I'm always getting lots of inquiries from people, especially parents. And in the last year, especially last year, and it's still going on this year with all their kids home. The parents are really challenged to get their kids energized and wanting to learn about STEAM and STEM. They're trying to get their kids stopping playing video games and actually trying to learn something. So education in the STEM stream area, I think is becoming more and more important. So we could always do something later on that. So, but I'm just kind of curious on your background. So when I usually talk to somebody interested in mechanical electrical engineering, they talk about how they were a kid. Of course, I'm very cliche because when I saw Star Wars for the first time and I saw robots for the first time, that's when I kind of got the bug, so to speak. And I do get a lot of friends that say the same thing. But what was the? Do you have a moment when you were a kid that you said, "Oh, I'm going to be mechanical electrical engineering. I'm going to get a PhD"?
Yes. Well, from the early days of my life, when I went to elementary school and also after that to high school, I always interested in math and science. So when it was time to choose a degree, a major in college, I was thinking about something that I was also involved in practical things. So I wanted to combine science and my math knowledge and physics knowledge with something practical. So I chose electrical engineering at that time. But as I went along, I figured out I'm into more something different, something newer, like electrical engineering didn't really satiate that for me. At that time, my father was developing hand tremors. And I searched the internet and came along with some cool papers that people working on this rehabilitation robotics. And I think that was a click moment for me that I started to get involved in robotics and start to work on robotics projects.
No, that's cool. That's a cool story. Um, so uh, it seems like I don't know what makes it happen, but it seems like every few months uh, we get stories about robots and AI and automation and how it's going to, uh, take everybody's jobs and take over the world. And uh, people are really very, very apprehensive about this. I mean, in my background, I got heavily involved in robotics back in 2005 when I went to my first Robo Games in San Mateo Bay Area. And I never really thought about it, but I kept, ever since 2005, I usually get these questions, you know, are robots going to take my job? Is AI going to take over my job? Is AI going to uh, take over the world? Is what safeguards do we have for AI? Uh, and and like I said, every few months there's an article we see, in a newspaper or a magazine that brings this up. There's doom and gloom into the world. I think we got. It seems like Musk, Elon Musk, tweets about AI every few weeks, and then he has a whole Twitter stream of everybody saying, oh no, AI is coming, taking over the world. And then we got other people. I think you talk about it in your really cool PDF that we'll try to share it so everybody can see it after they watch the interview and talk. And then it's a back and forth about AI, this and that, and so on. And so I think this is a very topical, very kind of important issue that we can talk about. And we just kind of jump in and start with movies and TV shows where robots and AI take over the world and go around killing people like Terminator and so on. And then you also get periodically Elon Musk will do a tweet about AI, and the scary things will happen because of AI, and then there'll be huge streams of everybody debating back and forth: is AI good or is AI bad? What's the future? I'm going to lose my job. It kind of like some of the B movies and C movies you see where the mad scientist invents a robot or AI that takes over the world. So there's a lot of apprehension, a lot of nervousness. People are nervous about their jobs in the future. So I think this is a really cool topic. You put together a really awesome presentation on it. I think we kind of jump in and kind of get your opinions. I think a lot of your opinions are very similar to mine, but I'm curious what you think. And will AI and automation still human jobs?
Thank you so much, Mike. Well, this is an important question. And as you mentioned, when you scoured the internet, there are lots of captivating headlines on major websites on this topic. A while ago, I had a conversation with a civil engineer friend, and he suddenly asked me what I see in the future with all these changes that we see in the world. He said that he's afraid that he can lose his job to a robot. I get very similar questions on my LinkedIn every day, and I found this an important talk for all disciplines. So thanks for bringing this up. I hope that it's an exciting topic for the viewers also, and they get a good share of information from it. Before answering this question and jumping to that question, I should mention that the fear with the inevitable changes that new technologies can bring is not new, and it just dates back to centuries. In the 15th century, Queen didn't grant the patent to the inventor of a kneading machine because she feared that the manual kneaders would be out of the work. In the early 19th century, Luddites, or the textile workers, protested against the mechanization of the textile industry. And this technological fear still exists. And today in the form of, they call it robot apocalypse. A recent headline from major websites like Business Insider reads that robots and AI are coming to our jobs and can cause massive unemployment. But I think here's the main question. Is this fear legit or not? Well, I can say that with the rise of the current pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the process of automation of the jobs is accelerated. Is already accelerated. Robots started to take the place of low-wage workers, and employers are now investing in this type of technology for now and the future pandemics. It's also estimated that half of today's jobs will be replaced by AI before 2055. So that's a little bit scary. We also see that with the new advancements, robots are turning to cobots. And we see that Industry 5 as the new industrial revolution is on the horizon in front of us. So for those people who don't know what cobots are like these collaborative robotics that can work in proximity with humans in contrast to the industrial robots that are always put in the cages because they are dangerous to work with humans. So the question that we might ask here is that what occupations are more susceptible to the robot and automation and AI? And generally, we can say that any job that can be broken down into simple steps and a machine can be programmed to do them is susceptible to this change, actually. Machines can easily replace all blue-collar manufacturing jobs related to assembly and machine operation, and also white-collar occupations like bookkeepers, cashiers, and telephone operators. Now let's see some examples of some of the jobs that are already started to replace humans with robots and AI. Janitors and cleaners are the ones that have a high potential to lose their jobs to a robot. For instance, this autonomous vehicle that Walmart deployed to clean the floors. It's equipped with upper and lower LiDAR. LiDAR is a sonar that uses pulsed laser waves to map the distance to surrounding objects. And it also has 2D and 3D cameras for the perception, the obstacle avoidance, as you can see, the navigation and turning. So by these autonomous vehicles, I think that janitors and cleaners would lose their jobs in the near future.
Yeah, so I get this question. I also get this question a lot too. So one of I think this is a great example because I know from my past history when I was in high school and college that I don't know about everybody else, but mopping floors and cleaning floors is not something I would want to do for years and years and years. So when we're talking about robots doing jobs, at least for the immediate future, they're just going to do simple jobs, repetitive jobs, simple tasks that at least I would find extremely boring. I don't know if you could pay me enough to mop floors for days on end, years, months on end, years on end. So at least I think I think this is a great example of the simple tasks, the repetitive tasks, the simple to do. I mean, you don't need hardly any training to do this. So at least I like to use examples like mopping as something me and probably lots of people wouldn't want to do.
Exactly. Yep. Uh, so other occupations that can be greatly affected by the current changes are the people who are in food packaging, preparation, and delivery. There are lots of robots now developed during the, especially lockdown, for this purpose. And I show you one recent example here. And the rest of the robots can be found in the free PDF that the viewers can download from the link provided to them. As you can see in this video, recently Domino's Pizza here in Houston, Texas, deployed an autonomous pizza delivery robot. This vehicle is from the autonomous vehicle company Nuro, I guess, and it uses advanced cameras, sensors, and radar to help navigate safely to the destination. You can see that it delivers the pizza to the destination, and we see that the future of pizza delivery is in the hands of robots. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so when people are always, very apprehensive about robots and robots taking jobs and stuff, but I think this is another great example that you bring up. So one of the things we learned last year in 2020 is that there's tasks that robots can jump in and help, especially in situations, because nobody knew the pandemic was going to happen. Nobody knew that we were going to be locked down. Nobody knew that we would spend weeks and months trying to limit social contact and have social distancing. So I think this is a great example because especially like in China and Japan and some of the Asian countries that were really locked down, the delivery drivers were the only means for people to get food and supplies. They would order something, and then the delivery driver would go out there, and the delivery driver was actually risking their own health. I've actually seen videos of delivery drivers trying to deliver in heavy rain and wind in their motorcycles and bikes. So so a lot of those delivery drivers were risking their health and their lives delivering in the middle of a pandemic. So I think this is a great example of another great example of how robots, you got to think they're really not taking jobs. They're there to help and assist, and especially in unforeseen situations, they can jump in. And then another great thing I like to tell people is, so let's say we have a situation where we need robots to jump in, like these delivery robots, to limit social distancing and contact between people. We can always store these robots for the next event. So so a robot doesn't have kids. A robot doesn't have a wife or a husband to support. So there's no issue about laying a robot off. You're not really laying the robot off. You're just putting the robot in a storeroom for the next disaster or emergency or unforeseen situation. So I think this is another great example of how robots can help in situations and not really hurt.
Correct, yes. Thank you for the information that they were really great. I have other examples, other jobs that can be largely affected by automation are the labor jobs related to moving materials, construction, and agriculture. I have a couple of examples here. This is the Squid robot from the company Bionic Hive, and it's the first warehouse autonomous robot that can climb the racks and move boxes, and it does the human job of doing this, right? So this is an example of the robot that's using in the material moving. Other examples can be in agriculture. This is the first, it's in the process of commercialization. It's pre-commercialization. agriculture robot. And it's the first robotic harvester that is used in agriculture. And you can see in this video that it's used to harvest strawberries. And we can see that in the future, people who are in these jobs can lose their jobs to a robot. The other example is in the construction. It just doesn't go to the, okay. The future of robotic construction is also in the hands of, the future of the construction is also in the hands of the automation. This is Hadrian X from the company FBR, and it's the world's first brick-laying robot that can build the walls of a house in as little as 1 day. So it can greatly reduce those laborious jobs that humans needed to do.
So yes. So I get the question about construction jobs and manual labor jobs. So yes, there's going to be some displacement of workers in those areas, but again, these are very intensive manual jobs. They take you need a healthy or semi-healthy person to do these jobs, and I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for other people, but when these intensive manual labor jobs are not in jeopardy, but there's going to be less of these jobs in the future. I think this is maybe not a motivation, but it can maybe tough love. But I know myself, I couldn't do these jobs for my entire life. So when I get, you know, in my 40s and 50s and 60s, these intensive manual labor jobs are going to be difficult for somebody like me to do. So I would definitely encourage people to take advantage of all the educational opportunities we have out there. YouTube is a great example. So I'm going to post this video to YouTube, and anybody can have access to it. There's all kinds of really cool educational resources out there, free educational resources out there to give yourself more knowledge and skills and opportunities. So yes, there's short-term displacement in these jobs, but I think it's kind of a motivation to go out there and get a little more educated, get a skill that, get a valuable skill that you can use, because your brain and you're be able to talk and communicate, and your intelligence, your skill and knowledge, that stays with you. The physical stuff, unfortunately, as we get older, breaks down. So, but as long as you have skills and knowledge that you can share and use and they're valuable, you always will have work opportunities. These intensive manual labor jobs, you know, these are like your jobs you do in your 20s and 30s. What do you do in your 40s and 50s and 60s? Can you retire? If not, do you want to retire? So that's where I think the brain skills can help you out.
That's a great solution, I think, to adapt to these changes, I guess, in the future. I have another example here, and mail delivery is another area that will be done totally by robots in the future, I guess. Here's an example of an autonomous vehicle named Same Day Bot, used by FedEx to deliver stuff to people's doors. I saw that also Amazon tested a similar delivery robot in the state of Washington. So up to this point, we concluded that robots would replace jobs that can be broken down into small tasks, and jobs that don't need any specific high skills, as we mentioned. But there are jobs that cannot be replaced by robots this soon, and robots, AI, and automation will only be a complement to the job. Robotics, AI, and automation can be a complement to a job if the job has the following criteria. So if the job requires non-routine cognitive tasks, the robot cannot replace that job, and it's only a complement to the job. Examples of these jobs are like programming, financial analysis, or research. Another criteria is if a job is related to emotional intelligence or quality control, cannot completely be replaced by a robot. Examples are nurses and salespeople. They're in this category. Even there are jobs that are routine but relates to human relations, this complex human relations. I saw in the news in 2015, I guess, that a hotel in Japan used the robots to greet the customers that come to their hotel. The robot was fine, the control system, the design, and everything was fine, but what wasn't fine is that the customers didn't respond to that robot favorably. So the hotel discontinued using that robot because people didn't like to be greeted by a robot. So when it comes to complex human relations, I think that we have yet to come that robots can take those jobs. As you mentioned previously, high-skilled jobs cannot be completely replaced by a robot, such as accountants or expert financial professionals, engineers, doctors. They need education, years of education to get that skill, and I don't think that robots can take those jobs. Jobs that require skills to deal with unpredictable human behavior, like caregivers, are also robot-proof, I guess. Now let's see some examples of the jobs that robots are already a complement to a job. For example, robotics can help physiotherapists repeatedly perform the daunting repetitive rehabilitation tasks and increase the rehabilitation outcome and efficiency. In this video, you can see Armin with the commercial name Armio Power, which is the first commercial rehabilitation robot developed by the company Hokuma that is currently used in a rehabilitation center in Switzerland. Similar robots are developed for lower rehabilitation also. Well, surgery. Surgery is the area that robots can greatly complement the work of a surgeon. For instance, Davinci surgical robot is a robot used in minimally invasive surgery and is developed by the company Intuitive Surgical. It's the only surgical robot, to the best of my knowledge actually, that has FDA approval, and it can be controlled by a surgeon using the console. The surgeon has a 3D picture on his or her side, and the surgeon's hand movement are transferred to the patient's side. These robots can complement the surgeon's job by eliminating hand tremors. Sorry, I don't know why it doesn't play. They can eliminate the hand tremors of the surgeon, and they can provide precise control by providing visual and haptic feedback to increase accuracy. Of course, there are some critics for these surgical robots. They claim that they are costly because currently insurance companies don't cover robotic surgery. And also they are difficult to learn by the surgeons because they are very technical. And they claim that they can expose unexpected dangers to the patient. So there are a lot of controversy around these surgical robots.
Yeah, so on the surgical robots, see, that's why I think you did a great job with your presentation and putting up some of the responses, because I think this is also a great example of how robots can help, because at least I had people from all over the world that watch my videos, but see, here in the US, a doctor, a surgeon doesn't work for one hospital usually, or one office. They usually move around from hospital to hospital. You have some surgeons that are in high demand in an area because they're so good, they're so knowledgeable about the surgeries or the subject they're involved in. And sometimes doctors and surgeons spend hours every day going from site to site, from building to building, from hospital to hospital. So that's where this remote robotic surgery stuff can really be really helpful. It can allow a doctor not to have to go from building to building or from hospital to hospital. It gives them the option to be able to remotely do a lot of stuff. So I think this is another great example of how robots really aren't taking doctors' jobs. They're supplementing, they're augmenting, they're helping, they're making the doctors and the surgeons more productive. They can do more surgeries in the day. So hopefully, if they can do more surgeries in the day, they can be more productive in the day, then the cost of surgeries and operations and procedures will come down. It's like anything. Hopefully, the more supply, the more you can do, the less you need to charge.
Yeah, that's really correct. So nurses and doctors in hospital can also benefit from robotics. During the current pandemics, many robots were used to disinfect the hospitals, check body temperatures, check the patient vitals, or even take COVID tests. During COVID pandemic, as you see in this video, a hospital in Italy used Sambot's Telepresence robot to check on COVID patients. So the Telepresence means that the robot goes and checks the patient, and the doctor is in another room talking to the patient. There are, again, some more examples in the free PDF that people can check. So I just brought out some of those here.
Yeah, so in today's world, another great example of how robots can help out, because just to take a story out of the news right now. So in India, when we're filming this, India is suffering a second wave of COVID-19, and it's a huge medical and not a disaster, but it's causing huge strains on the hospitals and the doctors and the nurses in India right now, with everybody being coming down with COVID-19 and their strain of COVID-19. So in situations like that, I think cities and governments and maybe world companies and UN and stuff, how great would it be if you could send in a small army of robots into an area and help out? Because think of how much PPE use it will reduce. Robots can't get sick. They can't get flus and pandemics, and they can't transmit these to humans. And they're really easy to disinfect. You can, between visits to a patient or visits to a room, you can zap them with UVC or spray them with chlorine water and quickly disinfect them between patients. So again, I think this is another great example of how don't worry about robots taking your jobs. Think about all the cool things that robots can help. And you mentioned telepresence. Telepresence is another great example. There is all kinds of stories about people who are in the hospital and their kids and their family and their husbands or the wives couldn't visit them. That's where a telepresence robot could step in and help out that situation and comfort that person. You can visit somebody, he's under quarantine in their home using a telepresence robot. Think of it as like super Zoom chat, like we're having right now. Instead of just using your computer, you can have a mobile robot that can follow you around or follow somebody around. And you can talk to them and visit with them and see how they're doing.
Yeah, that's totally correct. So Here's the question. So you mentioned some of the solutions. How can we adapt to the rapidly changing world? You mentioned some of the solutions, but I can add more to them that you already mentioned. How can we adapt ourselves and robot-proof our jobs? We shouldn't ignore that. You already mentioned this. One possible advantage of introducing automation, AI, and robotics is increasing the quality of life by eliminating the laborious, hard jobs, as you mentioned before. But on the other hand, people may feel the need to improve their skills. And one possible solution is, as you mentioned before, is to learn a skill that a few can do, not to mention robots and AI. If a job can be broken down into easy steps and developed into an algorithm, it's likely that people can lose that job to a robot. So if it's not that algorithmic job, then it's a robot-proof for a few years. Another possible solution is to engage in industries, new industries like 3D printing, digital marketing, or user experience design, new energies, app development, robotics or cybersecurity, data science, artificial intelligence, and also something that's in the future, and it's called mind transfer or memory surgeon. These are some of the examples. In general, jobs that require mental elasticity and complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and openness to innovations, and also interdisciplinary knowledge cannot be replaced by robots this soon. But there is something that is far in the future that I want to mention here. And I think that if we can reach to that point, I think that robots and machines can take over our world and we will have a completely different economy. And that's called mind uploading or brain emulation. If we can create a scanning of physical structure of the brain accurately enough to create an emulation of the mental state and copying it to a computer in digital form, then I think that at that time, we can create an AI that's exactly like a human. So at that time, we can say that a machine can do any job that humans can do. But we are far from that future.
Yeah, so one of the things, so I follow Elon Musk on Twitter, and he's always tweeting about AI and machine learning and robotics and so on. I think he's more doom and gloom into the world than I think I am, and a lot of people are. But he does have a very good point in one thing. There's all kinds of free online resources where you could learn skills and knowledge that makes you wanted and in demand. There's great courses. Some are paid. Some are you have to pay for some. But there's a lot of great YouTube channels out there, like mine and yours, where we discuss topics and we try to help people out and inform people. And really, without spending a lot of money, you can become an expert at topics. I mean, I know that you're a professor and you're into education and you're into learning and teaching, but there's a lot of great, for people who maybe don't have the money and budget, there's a lot of resources out there you can use to educate yourself and give you that skills and knowledge. And then real quick, so there's a few courses out there on machine learning and data science, and I would definitely encourage people watching this video to just check those out. Coursella's got a few, and one of the things that worries people about AI is that they've kind of got this impression that AI is here and now. So real quickly, I'll bring up the topic. So AI can be divided down into a few areas. So when you talk a human, like human intelligence, that's AGI, artificial general intelligence. That means that the AI can mimic us, or not mimic, but it can learn, it understands the world around it, it can be creative and adaptive, and be just like us and invent new things, create new ways to do things. But that's a very challenging part of AI. Many people think that is years, decades, and a long time off to have something, have AGI, general artificial intelligence. And of course, everybody's worried about artificial super intelligence, ASI, and that's way far off. There's going to have to be a lot of breakthroughs to bring that about. We're talking decades, years and decades in the future before machines and AI are more intelligent than us. But so ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence, that's where everything is going right now. So think of that as, I think it's been described to me as a one-trick pony. You can design an AI to do one machine learning or AI to do one task very well. But like you said, I think you've mentioned, and I think I've mentioned, is that when you have a very narrow focused artificial intelligence machine, a robot, then you need somebody to program that. You need somebody to design that system. You can use machine learning, but you need to develop and to find a process that you can automate and that you can use ANI on. And so that's where I would encourage people that if you're interested in this stuff, to get the knowledge, the skills, and the background, be the person that designs and does the project, that does the automation. So you don't have to worry about your job, so you can go from area to area. And then one of the most important skills that a lot of people don't realize about creating artificial intelligence is somebody has to have the knowledge and skills in that area. A programmer, an artificial intelligence AI, a programmer doesn't know, how to be a nurse or a doctor, how to automate a skill. Computer programmer, probably hasn't washed dishes or mop floors and did all these special skills that robots AI can do. I mean, we go on and give examples. There has to be some human that knows something well enough to explain it to a computer programmer so that program can automate it. Another great example is on a factory floor. When you're producing automobiles or some kind of appliance, you can teach your robot how to do one task on the assembly line. You can teach an arm or a cobot to do one task in the assembly, but you need somebody or a group of people who know everything from how to build a car from the very beginning to the very end. And right now, robots can't do that. So you need humans to program and maintain and develop robots to do these tasks. So yeah, I think there's so many cool job opportunities out there. I mean, I know I kind of interrupt you in your train of thought, but I thought it was a good time to bring up some of the cool things that I've seen and talk to people about, and the opportunities out there for robotics and AI. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Yes, there are lots of free stuff out there for people to learn their skills, and actually, I'm also working on that in my company to find new ways for people to be able to understand robotics more easily, like tangible robotics. Thank you, Mike, for bringing those up. Those were really good points to add. I also want to talk a little bit about ethics, because this topic has stirred a lot of debate on the internet. And it's that once the robots are out into our world, then who is responsible for their actions? There's several ethical concerns as autonomous robots are able to work outside this structured environments and into real world. We should first understand that robots or any tools cannot be bad or good by nature, but it's their application by humans that identifies the ethics behind them. This brings the main challenge behind autonomous robots. When robotics companies sell their commercial robots to end users, they can potentially do whatever they want with them. And that's why most robotics companies explicitly state that their robots are intended to do what kind of jobs. CEOs of several robotics companies made statements on this topic that I think it's interesting for the viewers to know about. Peter Frankhauser, CEO of Anybotics company, told in an interview with IEEE Spectrum that they strictly exclude any military or weaponized uses. And since the foundation of Anybotics is close to their heart to make human work easier, safer, and more enjoyable, and that's their mission. Robert Plater, who is the CEO of Boston Dynamics, stated clearly that they have restrictions on what people can do with their robots, which are outlined in their terms and conditions of the sale. All of their buyers, without exception, must agree that the robot Spot will not be used to harm or intimidate anybody or animals, or it cannot be used as a weapon or configured to hold a weapon. They state this in their terms of sale. Spot, just like any product, must be used in compliance with the law. Also, Ryan Gary, I guess, CTO of ClearPath Robotics, reassured everybody that they wouldn't sell or support the robot if they know that it will create an uncontrolled safety hazard, or they have reason to believe that the buyer is unqualified to use the product. And that they don't support using their products for the development of fully autonomous weapon systems. From the statements of these CEOs of these big robotics companies, it's clear that they see robots as artificial workforce and not as weapons or as a means to intimidate others, destruct things, or promote violence that we see in the robot movies. The robots should be used for peaceful purposes and alongside humans to avoid any potential harm that they can have. The companies can make sure that their robots are used according to their guidelines by stating this in their terms of sale, that violations may void the customer's warranty or prevent their robots from being updated maybe or serviced or replaced. Other than these safety issues, robots can push ethical boundaries. For instance, they can be used in art or research where people can find it like not appropriate. The Robert Plater from Boston Dynamics thinks that there is a clear distinction between using the robot in research and art and using the robot for violent or illegal purposes. I wanted to bring this up as the ethics behind this because I saw some discussions on the internet over this. So I don't know if you have anything to add to it. So
this is, okay, I will say this is a challenging task. There's really right now, if I'm wrong, I've done a lot of research on this, so people can leave comments in the videos and stuff, but there's really not a lot of rules, laws, regulations, safety regulations about robots in the workplace, robots in the homes. There is guidelines. There's some industry guidelines and some best practices. So I think there's a lot of work needs to be done on this. one of the examples I like to use is the last mile delivery robots. A lot of those last mile delivery robots, especially in cities, use bike lanes. They use the paths and the ramps that people with disabilities use. So they kind of use the same space that's needed for bikes and for wheelchairs and for people who need assistance moving around. So there's definitely a lot of things, hurdles and stuff we got to get around, and we just need to be conscious that as a group, as a society, as we adapt these robots. But when I was a kid, well, I still do it. I watch a lot of movies, and usually in the movies, you've got a scientist in a laboratory somewhere. You can actually call them a mad scientist. They create something without thinking. They think more about their creation than what will happen after they create something. But that's movies. Most scientists that I know are not mad scientists. They don't work in a vacuum. They don't work in a laboratory by themselves with no contact. Most of them have families and kids and parents and grandparents and friends and loved ones. I would say almost all the scientists I know do not want to develop a killer robot or a killer app. They don't want to be known throughout history as the person who developed the robot that injured or killed people or caused problems. They definitely, I do know, like, most people are very conscious about their privacy. They don't want to put a telepresence robot in somebody's house and then have a hacker come by and hack into the robot and take compromising videos and pictures using the telepresence robot. I mean, it's just, what I tell people is a killer robot is bad business. If you're developing, like the guy who works, the CEO of Boston Dynamics, he's right. He doesn't want to be known, his company doesn't want to be known as a company that developed a killer robot. I mean, think of what would happen to Boston Dynamics. It would destroy your business. People aren't in the business. You can't have a successful business and make killer robots. I mean, I know the military and applications like so on, but majority of people, you can't have a successful business, and people don't want that stigma of being the person that developed that scary robot. And another quick point, I can talk on and on about robotics, but one of the things that I've noticed, popular culture has changed or formed people's minds about what robots are. So if you think about it, in the U.S., in popular culture, I can't remember the year this happened, but I watched 2001, and HAL just scared. I was a little kid when I saw 2001, but HAL just scared me. I had bad dreams about HAL 2000. And then I think it's in 84, 85, the Terminator movies came out. And at least in the US, we have this stigma, or this popular culture has created this stigma about robots and how dangerous robots are and how scary robots are. But the interesting thing is, I mean, we can probably talk about that and how to overcome that and how to get around that. But it's interesting, I have friends in Japan, and when they're little kids, they have cartoons where the robots are the good guys. The robots are the heroes. The robots are the saviors. There's all kinds of cartoons. I could go on and mention many examples of cartoons and live action TV shows from Japan where the robot's the good guy, the savior, the so on. So at least in Japan, there's they see the robots as helpful and assistance. And it's similar to China and South Korea. But this is kind of my rambling thoughts on that. But I think the big takeaway that at least that I would say to people is killer robots are bad business. Nobody wants to be that mad scientist that it's in the history books and on documentaries and Discovery Channel. Nobody wants to be known as that mad scientist to develop that app or that robot that destroyed, killed people or destroyed the world. That's, I mean, at least the people I know and talk to and be around, that's so far from what they want that maybe something accidentally will happen, but I think lots of people are around and don't want that to happen.
Yeah, totally correct. I agree with you there. Yeah, nobody wants that mad scientist. We are in the research and we don't want to have that kind of research. Okay, I have one more topic here, and that's the taxes that I was thinking about as this rapid pace of automation destroy routine jobs and replace the laborious and labor jobs with AI and robots. Can this cause a revenue loss for the government since the main source of the tax is from the labor tax? And should robots pay taxes or not? I have some comments on this in the PDF, but I would like to leave this question to the viewers. And I also would like to know their opinions on this, or maybe you can add something to it. But I was curious to know, should robots pay taxes? Because, well, the labor tax would be cut off if the robots take the place of those labor jobs.
Okay, I know. I think Bill Gates has talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if Elon Musk I can't remember if Elon Musk has commented on this or not, but I know Bill Gates thinks that this is a good idea. So, but I think there's a lot of pitfalls of this because what they're trying to say is because robots are taking jobs and displacing workers that you need to tax the robot. So this is where it gets really confusing and complicated and hard to implement, because what you're saying is you need to tax an individual robot on their productivity, how much revenue they create. So so like you and me, we pay taxes on our income. Exactly. So somehow accountant has to figure out.
So do you think that it can change economy? So because this production and so people produce things, we work and we buy those things, and also we pay taxes because of our income. So maybe with the coming of the robots, we would have a completely different economy in the future that doesn't work like this.
Well, I mean, that's a possibility. It's so hard. See, the problem I think people have to think about is it's really hard to predict the future. If it was easy to predict the future and how things would work and how the economy will work, then everybody could invest and do a startup. Everybody would be millionaires and billionaires because they would be in the ground floor of every new innovation, every new change in the economy. So yes, I think changes are coming. It's so hard to predict how they're going to happen. At least for I do think at least for this foreseeable future, there's still going to be jobs and people will still have ways to make income. there's always going to be huge opportunity. Whenever change happens, I know change can be very scary to people, but always with change, there's always lots of really cool opportunities out there, cool new jobs, cool new things people can do. So I would tell people, I mean, I'm sort of answering your question, sort of not answering your question, but there's always so many cool opportunities out there and cool new things people can do and discover and learn. And just as a person, I would think keep your head out of the sand. Look for these opportunities. Look for these chances for you to step in and show people you have knowledges and skills. Always be out there. Nobody predicted Bitcoin and all those other kind of stuff. I mean, I wish I knew when Bitcoin came out to buy Bitcoin, but I didn't. I wish I had bought Tesla stock years ago. I invested all my retirement in Tesla stock or Bitcoin. I could retire right now. But I do think changes are happening, but usually when change is happening, there's always the good always outweighs the bad. Taxes, I also taxing robots on their productivity. I also know there's talk about giving everybody $1,000 a month and so on. The government will give you $1,000 a month because you'd be displaced or your job or whatever. There's been talk about that. I do think I think the best thing for us to do is to have educational and resources for people that are cheap or free so that they can learn new skills and get new knowledge and have something marketable that because the best way to get a high paying job is have some skill or experience that nobody else has. And I think, again, I like using the Elon Musk example. You may disagree with him because he's always advocating that you don't always need to have a college education or bachelor's degree or master's degree or PhD. There's so many free resources out there. YouTube is a great example of you get knowledge and skills. I tell kids in high school, I know I'm rambling on again, but I tell kids in high school, FIRST is a great opportunity, the first robotics in the US, because there's going to be a lot of summer jobs and night jobs and weekend jobs. There's going to be, as robots get out in the workforce, in the workplace and at the home, there's going to be a lot of people that don't have the skills and knowledge to repair and maintain and program robots. So just think of how cool it would be is that all these FIRST kids in high school, they learn a lot about robotics through FIRST, and then they take these skills and knowledge and get a part-time job in the evenings and nights and weekends and during the summer, helping a business integrate and use their robots. I mean, we could probably have a whole discussion about this. A kind of a funny discussion I've had similar to taxing robots is I've developed a few robots to, like Snow here, in restaurants, deliver food to a table. So the little funny thing that I had conversation with people is, do you tip your robot? So you have a waitress robot. Do you tip your robot? Or do you tip the store, or you tip? And some people say, yeah, maybe I give a tip to the whole store. Other people are like, nah, I'm not going to tip the robot. That's a little funny thing. Definitely, I mean, maybe as things evolve, we can talk more about tipping robots or showing robots appreciation or taxing the productivity of robots. But the big thing I will stress to kind of close out this subject is that taxing stuff has has unintended consequences. As you tax the productivity of robot, you limit the development and the use of the robots. So if you have like a unforeseen circumstances, COVID-19, nobody saw that coming. And what happened? In the future, we may have some unforeseen application for a robot that's very helpful, that improves everybody's quality of life, that improves a situation that without robots that would be almost disaster. Why limit the distribution, the spread of robots? I mean, we could also have a discussion about open and closed source, but in my mind, being open and having everybody have access to something, making something as cheap as possible, only makes the development and the spread and the use of that service easier.
Yeah, I totally agree with your last point. It's like this surgical robots that because the insurance companies don't pay for robotic surgery, a lot of people don't opt to do that because, well, it's very costly per surgery. It's exactly like that with taxing robots. We may limit innovation and creativity when we do that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Very cool.
Okay, so I think that's my last talk, and to conclude my discussion, I can say that robots are created by humans and not vice versa, and they should make the lives of us better and easier in all aspects. The future with robots, automation, AI will be completely different, but as we discussed, humans can adapt to these changes by improving their skills and education.
It's very cool.
Okay, thank you everyone for your attention. And also I can say that be sure to download the PDF for more examples. And also there is an appendix of the professions and the degree of which they are susceptible to the automation at the end of that PDF.
Yeah, yeah, so I will, after I upload this video to YouTube, I will put in the descriptions, I'll post links to your website and where they can see both the PDF and the PowerPoint, and then see all your cool references. Yeah, you do have a lot. You almost like you wrote a presentation or a lecture or a paper. So you did a lot of cool work. So I'll make sure that people can click on the link in the description and see all the hard work you did on this. So cool. So yeah, I want to, so kind of close up. I want to thank you for spending your time on this.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, very cool. So hopefully we can do collaborating in the future. And so I just kind of want to end it by thanking everybody for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope to see everybody in the next video. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.